You know, somewhere along the way, we were taught that getting older means slowing down, fading into the background, or simply putting up with whatever life throws our way. But I don't buy that. Not anymore. Because something powerful happens when you reach 70. You start to see life differently, not through the lens of what others expect, but through the quiet clarity of what actually matters. And just as important, what doesn't. If you're anything like me, you've spent a good part of your life doing things you thought you were supposed to, worrying about appearances, keeping everyone else happy, carrying old regrets, filling your days with chores, stuff, and obligations that never really brought you joy. And maybe now, you're starting to wonder, was all of that really necessary? Today, I want to share with you 12 things I stopped doing after turning 70. And I'll be honest, some of them were hard to let go of. But each one set me free in ways I never imagined. If you stick around until the end, I'll share the one change that truly turned my life around, the one that brought real peace, real joy, and a sense of purpose I wish I had found sooner. This isn't about giving advice. It's about sharing what I've learned in the hope that maybe, just maybe, it helps you feel a little lighter, a little clearer, and a whole lot more alive. Let's begin. 1. Worrying about what others think. I spent a good chunk of my life worried about what other people thought of me, what I wore, how I looked, what I said at dinner, whether I came off as too much or not enough. I used to second-guess myself constantly, replaying conversations in my head, wondering if someone misunderstood me or if I made a fool of myself somehow. It was exhausting. And the strangest thing is, most of the people I worried about probably didn't give it a second thought. They moved on with their day. Meanwhile, I was stuck, carrying their imaginary judgment like a backpack full of bricks. But something changed when I got older. Somewhere around 70, I started asking myself, why am I still doing this? Who am I trying to impress? And the answer? I couldn't even name the people anymore, so I stopped. I started dressing the way I wanted. Sometimes that means bold colors. Sometimes it's a comfortable old sweater I love. I started speaking up more, laughing without worrying if it was too loud, saying what I really meant without sugarcoating it just to be liked. It felt scary at first, like I was breaking some kind of rule. But then it started to feel like freedom. There's something powerful about realizing you no longer need permission to be yourself. You don't owe anyone a performance. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit into a version of life that was never yours to begin with. Now, when I catch myself slipping into that old pattern, wondering if someone disapproves, I remind myself, their opinion doesn't pay my bills, it doesn't feed my soul, and it sure as heck doesn't define my worth. Letting go of what others think didn't make me rude. It made me real. And honestly, I like this version of me a whole lot more. 2. Holding grudges. I used to carry grudges like they were heirlooms, old arguments, hurtful words, people who let me down and never apologized. I held on to all of it, tightly. I'd replay moments in my head, sometimes even years later, thinking, how could they say that? How could they do that to me? At the time, it felt justified. Like if I stayed angry, it somehow gave me control. Like I was making sure the hurt didn't get forgotten or swept under the rug. But here's the truth I came to learn. Grudges don't protect you. They poison you. Slowly. They sneak into your thoughts during quiet moments. They steal your peace. They harden your heart even when you don't mean them to. And the person who hurt you? Most of the time, they've moved on. Or they're too wrapped up in their own life to even remember. Meanwhile, you're left holding this heavy thing that only you can feel. I remember once, years after a falling out with someone I used to consider family, I saw them at a grocery store. We didn't speak, just passed by each other. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of carrying something that never gave me back anything useful. That night, I let it go. Not for them, for me. Forgiveness isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's not about reopening the door to someone who caused harm. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of it. It's saying, I'm not going to let this hurt own me anymore. Sometimes forgiveness is quiet. Sometimes it's just a deep breath and a decision not to let that pain take up space in your life anymore. And let me tell you, once you set that burden down, even if it's just a little at a time, life feels lighter. Sleep feels deeper. Smiles come easier. We don't have unlimited years left. I'd rather spend the time I have feeling light, not heavy, at peace, not bitter, and most of all, free. 3. Trying to please everyone. For most of my life, I thought being a good person meant making sure everyone else was happy, even if that meant I wasn't. I said yes when I wanted to say no. I went along with plans I didn't enjoy. I smiled through things that hurt. And I told myself, that's just what you do. That's love. That's being a good parent, a good partner, a good friend. But somewhere along the line, I started noticing something. I was tired. Not just physically tired, but emotionally drained. I wasn't enjoying the things I used to. I felt invisible sometimes, like I was just there to keep the peace, to make everything run smoothly, to take care of everyone but myself. And then I asked myself a question that changed everything. What if trying to please everyone is the very thing keeping me from being truly myself? See, the problem with being a people pleaser is that no matter how hard you try, it's never enough. Someone's always going to be disappointed. Someone's always going to want more. And meanwhile, you're left giving away tiny pieces of yourself until one day there's not much left. So I started saying no. At first, it was awkward. I felt guilty. I worried people would think I was selfish. But then something surprising happened. The world didn't fall apart. In fact, the people who truly cared about me, they understood. They respected my honesty. And most of all, I started respecting myself. Now, I only say yes when I mean it. I spend my time where it feels meaningful. I don't force myself into situations that drain me just to avoid disappointing someone else. And I'll tell you this. Life after 70 is too short to keep bending yourself out of shape just to keep others comfortable. You've spent years making sacrifices. You've shown up. You've done your best. You've earned the right to put yourself first, not in a selfish way, but in a kind, honest, deeply human way. Because the truth is, the only person you're truly responsible for pleasing is you. 4. Keeping up with every chore. There was a time in my life when a dirty dish in the sink would bother me for hours. I'd get up early just to make sure the kitchen was spotless. I'd vacuum the floors, wipe down every surface, fold every towel just so. I thought if my home wasn't perfect, something was wrong with me. That I was falling short, that I wasn't doing enough. Looking back, I realized I was chasing a version of control that didn't actually exist. Don't get me wrong, I believe in living in a clean, comfortable space. But somewhere along the way, the pressure to have everything pristine became more about anxiety than joy. I'd miss phone calls, cut short conversations, even skip time outside, just to chase a floor that would get dusty again tomorrow. And you know what I've learned? Nobody remembers a perfectly polished kitchen, but they will remember how they felt in your home. Whether they were welcomed, whether you were relaxed, whether you had time to sit down and share a laugh. At this stage in life, your time and energy are too precious to spend scrubbing baseboards every other day. I've stopped chasing the spotless house. I've started embracing the lived-in home, one that smells like fresh coffee in the morning, one with a book half finished on the table, one where the dishes might wait because I'd rather call my granddaughter and hear about her school day. If you're able to hire help, do it without guilt. If you have family around, ask for a hand. If not, just focus on the essentials and let the rest go. Your value doesn't live in your chore list. It lives in your presence, in your stories, in the memories you make in the spaces you call home. So leave the dust for tomorrow and give yourself permission to enjoy today. 5. Buying things you don't need. I used to think owning more meant living better. New clothes, kitchen gadgets, home decor, things on sale that I didn't even need, but bought because, well, they were on sale. My closets were full, the garage was packed, and yet I still felt like something was missing. It took me a long time to realize the things I was buying weren't filling a need, they were filling a space. There's something comforting about having stuff around us. It makes us feel prepared, even accomplished. But the truth is, too much of it becomes noise. It clutters not just your house, but your mind. After my wife passed, I started going through our belongings. There were items we hadn't touched in over a decade, clothes still with tags, cookbooks we never opened. I sat there surrounded by it all, and I remember thinking, why did we keep all this? That moment changed something in me. I began letting things go, not all at once. A few items here, a few there, and with each box I donated or gave away, I felt lighter, not just physically, but emotionally. It was as if I was making room for something new, not new stuff, but new peace. I'm not saying you need to live like a minimalist, but I am saying this. You don't need more things to live a rich life. You just need the right things, the ones that add real meaning. These days, I spend less on things and more on experiences. A nice lunch with a friend, a trip to the farmer's market, a painting class I've always wanted to try. Those moments stay with me longer than any knick-knack ever could. So if your shelves are overflowing and your drawers barely close, maybe it's time to ask, what am I really holding on to? And more importantly, what could I gain by letting go? Because after a certain point in life, less really is more. More space, more clarity, more room to breathe and just be. 6. Trying to fix everyone else's problems. For most of my life, I thought it was my job to fix things. If someone I loved was struggling, I'd jump in, offer advice, make phone calls, solve it for them if I could. I wore that role like a badge of honor. The dependable one, the strong one, the fixer. Especially as a parent and later as a grandparent, it felt like love meant never letting anyone fall. I wanted to protect them from every mistake, every pain, every wrong turn. But over time, I learned something hard. You can't live someone else's life for them. And trying to do so doesn't just wear you out, it can rob them of the growth they need. I remember when my son went through a difficult time. Marriage problems, job stress, financial worry. Every part of me wanted to step in, to offer solutions, to somehow make it better. But for the first time, I did something different. I listened. I said, I'm here if you need me. And then I stepped back. It wasn't easy. Watching someone you love struggle never is. But in that space I gave him, he figured things out. He made decisions he could stand behind, and most importantly, he grew stronger on his own terms. That's the thing. When we always step in to save the day, we unintentionally send the message that we don't trust them to handle it, that we don't believe they're capable. But they are. Sometimes they just need someone to believe in them, even when they're not doing great. After 70, your energy becomes sacred. You can't carry everyone else's burdens anymore, and you shouldn't have to. You can be supportive without sacrificing yourself. You can love without fixing. Now, I still show up. I still listen. I still care deeply, but I no longer take on what isn't mine to carry. And I can't tell you how freeing that is. So if you're feeling exhausted from trying to hold the world together for everyone you love, maybe it's time to lay that down. Maybe your job isn't to fix, but simply to be a safe place where they can figure it out for themselves. 7. Comparing yourself to others. I never thought of myself as someone who compared, but then one day I was sitting on the porch, sipping my tea, and I saw my neighbor, just a few years younger than me, heading out on yet another vacation. New suitcase, new shoes, looking like she just walked out of a catalog, and for a second I thought, why don't I do that? Why don't I look like that? What am I even doing with my time? It was just a passing thought, but it stayed with me longer than I'd like to admit. That's the thing about comparison. It sneaks in quietly. A glance at someone else's life, and suddenly yours doesn't feel good enough. You see someone with a picture-perfect family, and you wonder why your relationships are more complicated. You hear about friends traveling the world, and suddenly your quiet afternoons feel small. You meet someone your age who seems more energetic, more stylish, more put together, and you start questioning yourself. But here's what I've learned. You never see the full picture of someone else's life. That friend with the perfect family, she might be struggling behind closed doors. That jet-setting neighbor, she might be running from loneliness. And the one who seems so youthful, they might be carrying emotional weight you wouldn't trade for anything. We all carry something. And the life you're living, the one with the quiet mornings, the old chair you love, the familiar walk through the park, the phone calls with your kids, it's yours. And that makes it beautiful. I started keeping a small notebook just to write down what I'm grateful for each day. Some days it's big, like a visit from my daughter. Other days it's as small as the smell of coffee in the morning or the warmth of a sunbeam on my face. Those moments have taught me that joy doesn't come from having more. It comes from noticing what you already have. So the next time you find yourself comparing, try this. Pause. Look around your own life. Ask, what here is worth celebrating? Because chances are you're already living a life someone else is quietly wishing for. 8. Overthinking the past. It's funny how the past has a way of sneaking up on you, especially when things get quiet. You could be folding laundry or looking out the window, and suddenly, there it is, that one moment, that decision you wish you'd made differently, the words you wish you hadn't said, or the chance you didn't take. I've spent entire evenings trapped in memories, replaying conversations from 30 years ago, wondering how things might have turned out if I'd just done one thing differently. And the truth is, it never changed anything. Not once. No matter how many times I turned it over in my mind, the past stayed exactly where it was, behind me. But my peace? That's what it kept stealing. You see, the past is like a photo album. You can look through it, you can remember, you can learn, but you can't go back and edit the pictures. I had to ask myself, what am I really hoping to find by rethinking the same moment for the 100th time? Am I looking for closure? For forgiveness? For a chance to rewrite it? Eventually, I realized I was just trying to make peace with who I used to be. So instead of picking the memory apart, I started doing something different. I looked at that version of myself, whether I was 30, 40, or even just yesterday, and said, you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. And that was enough. The past didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to be accepted. Because the truth is, every version of me, the proud ones, the broken ones, the confused and scared ones, they all helped shape the person I am today. So now, when those old memories visit me, I welcome them with kindness. I thank them for what they taught me. And then I gently show them the door, because I've still got life to live. And it's happening right now. 9. Staying quiet about your needs. For a long time, I believed that staying quiet was the polite thing to do. If something was bothering me, I'd brush it off. If I needed help, I'd keep it to myself. If something felt missing, I'd tell myself, it's not a big deal. And over time, that became a habit, one I didn't even realize I was living inside of. It wasn't that I didn't have needs. I just didn't want to be a burden. So I stayed quiet. But here's what I've learned, and it took me years to understand this. Silence doesn't make you strong. It just makes you invisible. And the longer you stay quiet, the more the people around you assume you're fine, that you don't need support, that you're okay with how things are. Meanwhile, you're quietly wishing someone would just ask. I remember one day I was at a family dinner surrounded by my kids and grandkids, and still I felt lonely. Not because they didn't love me, but because I had so much I wanted to say and didn't. Later that night, I told my daughter, "Sometimes I feel like I'm just here, like I'm part of the room, not part of the moment." She looked at me, surprised, and said, "Why didn't you ever tell me?" That was my wake-up call. People can't meet needs they don't know exist. They're not mind readers, and being honest about what you need, whether it's help around the house, more time together, or simply a conversation where you feel truly seen, it's not selfish, it's essential. Now, I speak up. I say what I feel, even if it's a little uncomfortable. I ask for what I need, even if it's small. And you know what? The people who love me, they actually appreciate it, because it gives them a chance to show up, to love me better. You don't have to shout, you don't have to demand, but you do have to be honest with yourself and with the people who matter, because your needs, they matter too. 10. Saying yes when you mean no. How many times have you said yes just to avoid guilt? I used to do it all the time. Someone would ask for help or invite me somewhere I didn't really want to go, and I'd agree, even when every part of me wanted to say no. Why? Because I didn't want to disappoint anyone. I thought saying no was rude, selfish even. But here's what I've learned. Every time you say yes when your heart says no, you're abandoning a small part of yourself. At this age, your time and energy are gold. You don't owe anyone an explanation for choosing rest or space or simply doing nothing. Now, I say no, kindly but clearly. And guess what? The world keeps turning. And I finally feel free. Because sometimes, no isn't rejection. It's self-respect. See? 11. Trying to fix everyone else's problems. I used to believe it was my job to fix things. For my kids, my friends, even strangers. If someone was struggling, I'd jump in with advice, with solutions. I thought I was helping. But really, I was just carrying problems that weren't mine to solve. It took me years to realize. People grow through their own challenges. They don't need a rescuer. They need someone who believes in them. Now I listen more. I offer support, but I don't carry the whole load. Because at this stage in life, peace is more important than control. And loving someone doesn't mean fixing their life. It means trusting them to find their own strength and trusting yourself enough to step back. 12th, neglecting your own happiness. For years, I put myself last. I was busy taking care of everyone else, kids, grandkids, my home, my responsibilities. I kept telling myself, one day I'll have time for me. But one day never comes unless you make it. Happiness isn't something you stumble into at the end of the road. It's something you choose every single day, in small ways, in quiet moments. Now, I do the things that bring me peace. I read in silence. I sit in the sun. I laugh more, even at my own stories. And I remind myself I deserve joy, not just duty. So do you. Because the truth is, you're not too old and it's not too late to start living for you. If you've made it this far, thank you for spending this time with me, for listening, for reflecting. I didn't share these 12 lessons because I have life all figured out. I shared them because I've lived them. I've stumbled through them. And maybe, just maybe, they'll help you feel a little less alone in whatever season you're in. You see, life after 70 isn't an ending. It's a quieter, richer, more honest beginning. A time to shed the weight of what doesn't matter and hold close the few things that do. So take what spoke to you today. Let go of what didn't. And most importantly, remember this. You still matter. Your story still matters. And there is still so much joy left for you to find, not out there, but right here, in the life you already have. If this video brought you comfort, share it with someone you love. Maybe they need to hear it too. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. I make videos like this to remind us, older doesn't mean done. It means wise, real, and more alive than ever. Until next time, Take care of yourself the way you've taken care of so many others. You've earned it.